Hi, my name is Davin Sundvik with The Catch today, and we're going to be going over some misconceptions about black powder, and we're going to be continuing our conversation about loading black powder into modern day firearms. Now, I shoot a 30-06. There's a couple of reasons why I want to shoot black powder with it, and so that'll kind of get us into some of our misconceptions. And so the first reason to shoot black powder is to find a low recoiling round. When you start experimenting with anything that's not a given recipe with modern powder, you run the risk of significantly changing the cartridge to the point to where you can cause pressure spikes, or you can cause dangerous situations, right? Where maybe you shoot what's called a squib load, a load that does not completely exit the gun, and then you shoot another load behind it. You can end up with a catastrophic failure. So shooting black powder for me helps create a lower recoiling load for my wife. Also, my particular rifle barrel does not like super hot 30-06 loads. So I have to find specifically underpowered factory ammo in order for my 30-06 to shoot even somewhat reasonably accurate. I've had other loads like these all monolithic copper loads shooting 2-inch groups at 100 yards. I've had other ammo where the first shot would be unpredictable, and then the rest of them would group super tightly once the barrel was warm. The problem is when I'm hunting, I don't know what temperature the barrel is going to be. So I can't rely on super accurate ammo just because my gun likes it at a certain temperature. What I found was with black powder is that my groupings are about 1.5 to 2 inches at 100 yards, and I'm not getting those random flyers. Now, we need to do more tests in the future in order to be able to confirm this, but in general, it's just something that is out there for debate. I don't think it's a clear answer that black powder is necessarily inaccurate in every gun. Maybe in your gun, but my gun, we haven't proven that yet. All right, next thing I want to talk about is cleaning. A lot of people are fearful of cleaning their black powder guns, or fearful of black powder because of the cleaning. And I'll tell you this, if you use modern day smokeless powder solvents that are petroleum based, you will never get your black powder gun clean. Okay, something you'll learn very quickly when dealing with black powder is you have to use natural materials. So soap and water cleans black powder just fine. Also, when you're lubricating your gun, you need to use natural oils. It'll make it easier to clean the gun next time. Now, you could use something like a CLP. I use a CLP in my muzzle loader, and all I have to do is just simply clean it out before I shoot with a more natural oil like a beeswax or an olive oil, and now my gun's going to be shooting just fine. It'll be easier to clean going forward. So just a little tip for you there on the cleaning front. All right. I did talk about costs briefly, but one of the benefits is lower costs, right? So when you are reloading black powder, the safety is much easier. So we can do much easier to deal with. So we can do much more crude methods of reloading. I showed you a Lee loader kit that I used in order to reload some hand loads, and I've been getting fairly good groupings out of those hand loads so far. I only have three groups so far, so that's not really like a big sample size. But I do plan on doing a side-by-side comparison between the two groups very soon here, between a modern load in my 30-06 and that black powder load there. So that's going to be very exciting. But my reload cost is roughly about 63 cents for what I call the replacement cost. That is if I replaced every single item today per bullet, what would it be? And that's about 63 cents. Now, I bought some of the components while we were in a shortage. I bought some of the components when we were not in a shortage. So my costs are a little bit higher. I'm probably paying about 85 cents a round. But that's not even close to what I pay in the store for ammo. I mean, I'm paying like $1.25 around if I'm lucky. Some of the ammo that I have, I mean, it's premium stuff like, monolithic bullets, sorry, I don't know what monolithic, but, whatever kind of copper bullet, is single metal type stuff and it's super expensive. It might be like $2.50 or $3 a bullet. I mean, this stuff's insanely expensive. So as far as costs, way less expensive to reload with black powder than even to just shoot factory ammo. Now, to reload with smokeless powder is also probably comparable on price. Where I would argue with you is the press and the equipment that it takes and the space to store that equipment is much more of an encumbrance with modern smokeless powder because the tolerances are so tight in order to get accurate loads compared to black powder. The accuracy doesn't suffer that much on my little mallet loaded load. So like I said, we'll compare these side by side, but I would argue it's easier to get into hand loading with black powder than it is to get into hand loading or home loading with a smokeless powder setup. So just be aware on those fronts. The last misconception about black powder that I want to go into is that it's not powerful. Okay. I have not measured the velocities yet, and this is a future test that we have to do. But based on the recoil, the sound, just all those kind of things that kind of go into your experience of shooting, sometimes I can hear the bullet hit the paper, and it doesn't seem that much more delayed of a hit time than with regular smokeless powder. And what I'm saying is I don't think the velocity loss is more than half. I think we're probably getting 70 to 80% of the velocity, which is actually comparable to just stepping down in cartridge size. So for me, if I were to have my 30-06 for elk hunting and then buy a lower recoiling round for my wife to shoot or my child to shoot one day in a lower caliber like 308 or 30-30, I'm already reducing the velocity on those cartridges, but I'm also dealing with the expense of another gun, right? So to just simply take some components that I have at my house and just change what I do with those components and put it into the same gun. Now I don't need a bigger gun safe. I don't need to buy another gun, right? I can increase my versatility with my current weapons. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about, is that black powder weapons aren't versatile. I'm very excited to announce here soon that I'll be getting a musket. It's on its way. I'll announce it when it gets here, but black powder weapons are insanely versatile. It's really cool what you can do with them. If you're a tinkerer and you like to kind of play around with things, there is so many different ways to shoot a black powder. There's like no one right way to do it, and which means that there's no real wrong way to do it either. So if you want to increase the versatility of your firearms, and maybe you have some firearms that are a little bit older, you don't feel quite comfortable hand loading smokeless powder because you don't want to damage them because maybe they have historical value to you or sentimental value to you, but you know that they're in good condition, you just can't find factory ammo for them. I think it's a great way to bring some of these rifles alive by doing some of your own hand loading, but doing it with black powder and doing it in a way that's maybe a little bit safer to introduce yourself into, or just a way that's a little bit simpler to introduce yourself into hand loading. So I think for that portion of the context of this conversation is where it adds real value for people, is like bringing a gun into a situation that it was not intended to do so. Like, for example, bringing a 30-06 into a light recoiling round. 30-06 is not designed to be light recoiling. It's designed to be powerful, right? Or by taking a really old gun that you can't find ammo for, hand loading some black powder for, and turning it into something that actually can be used and shot, can actually mean something for somebody out there. So I, for example, love my Mosin Nagant, but I know one day I will not be able to find ammo for it. It's gonna go obsolete. It's just the direction it's heading in, and you have to be aware of that when you own antique firearms. And so to learn a skill that might be able to continue that gun's relevance to me, add some value. And if it adds some value to you, subscribe and keep following along with this series. See you around.